I'd like to present you with these exclusive shots of an SCP object. I managed to get close to its containment area, don't ask how. You see that orange puddle? That's the son of the devil. Just kidding, it's SCP-999. Now it'll gather itself together and go play with the Foundation operative. SCP-999 is known as the Tickle Monster. It's allowed to roam freely on the territory, which is why I was able to get these unique shots. As you might have guessed, the object belongs to the safe class. Actually, that's not really the case, but we'll get to that in due time. SCP-999 looks like orange jelly. This gelatinous, translucent orange mass weighs about 54 kilograms, or 120 pounds. It can spread over a surface in a puddle 2 centimeters thick. In its usual state, the object takes the form of a slightly flattened hemisphere with a height of 1 meter and a width of 2 meters. Generally, it changes its shape depending on both its desire and the situation at hand. The object's completely amorphous body has the viscosity of peanut butter. Instead of skin, the creature has a kind of cellular membrane, a transparent film about 5 millimeters thick, with hydrophobic properties and the highest elasticity possible. It protects the object, but allows it to absorb liquids and solid food. It's still unknown what this jelly is made of, but it easily breaks down organic compounds. The Tickle Monster has no conditions of detention per se. It must be sent into its pen from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. for sleep, or when movement restrictions are imposed in the zone in the event of an emergency. During daylight hours, SCP-999 can move around at its own discretion. It's forbidden from leaving the complex's territory. The pen is kept clean. His food, which they change out twice a day, is placed inside. By the way, SCP-999's diet is a sweet tooth's dream. It eats only sweets, devouring candies and cakes the same way an amoeba does. The object especially loves M&Ms and Necco wafers. It should never be given carbonated or caffeinated beverages. This restriction was introduced after a small incident. One of the more generous employees of the Foundation gave the Tickle Monster Coca-Cola, after which the creature took the form of a ball and bounced around the zone for half an hour. Then it lay motionless for the rest of the day, suffering from nausea. SCP-999 eventually returned to normal and the employee was reprimanded. All Foundation staff are allowed to make contact with the object, whether during a chance meeting or by visiting it in its enclosure. Personal visits are allowed during breaks and free time. SCP-999 should be addressed calmly, and it's forbidden to force it to play games. When you talk about playing with SCP objects, at best you're reminded of the Saw movies. Except, rather than the main villain John Kramer, you're his victim instead. What then is so special about SCP-999? You can already tell from its nickname, the Tickle Monster. The fact is, touching the object evokes euphoria in living things. It's been established that this is due to the psychological, not chemical effects on the nervous system. This in fact increases proportionally with the duration of contact, and persists long after contact with SCP-99 ceases. The Tickle Monster takes an interest in all living creatures, particularly humans. Its behavior is reminiscent of that of a playful dog. It goes out to meet the person and embraces them, enveloping them in pseudopods. All the while, the object makes noises like a pigeon cooing. It strokes people's faces and loves having tickle fights. In those cases, SCP-999 envelops the employee from the neck down, tickling them and causing a violent euphoric reaction. The creature lets the person go if they ask. However, sometimes it doesn't obey, which can lead to minor accidental injuries. If this happens, the Tickle Monster moves aside and takes the form of a ball, trembling and whimpering, as if apologizing. SCP-999 has never intentionally harmed a living creature. Moreover, it doesn't eat meat, and is ready to protect people at all costs, even to use itself to shield them from bullets. The creature was particularly interested in Foundation staff who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder or depression. After contact with the object, they feel a surge of vitality and a positive outlook. At the same time, the creature also uses some kind of aromatherapy. Observations note that the object exudes pleasant odors that change depending on the person it's in contact with. The reports mention the aromas of fresh laundry, chocolate, and roses, as well as fried bacon and even modeling clay. The Foundation is discussing the possibility of making antidepressants out of SCP-999's substance. This is still only talked about, but they couldn't refrain from introducing the Tickle Monster to a particularly dangerous object. Naturally, we're talking about the hard-to-destroy reptile. The reptile serves as a kind of indicator. The properties of other objects are considered as opportunities to restrain, or in an extreme case, destroy SCP-682. The hard-to-destroy reptile has the highest degree of intelligence, and no less hatred for all living things. SCP-999 is the reptile's polar opposite, and if the rumors are true, then this makes this even more interesting. During the experiment, the Tickle Monster was placed in the same cell as SCP-682. It immediately showed interest in the reptile, approaching it, making friendly gurgles and other sounds. SCP-682, in its usual mood, growled something unintelligible, calling the creature disgusting and trampling it. At that point, the operatives mentally said goodbye to Happy Days and the Tickle Monster itself. But then, the unimaginable happened. The reptile made what sounded like a muffled chuckle, and said that it felt good. SCP-999 calmly crawled out from under the reptile's foot, wrapped itself around its neck, and started to stroke the reptile with one of its pseudopods. SCP-682 smiled broadly, as was stated in the report, although the structure of its mouth hardly allows it to smile in the usual sense. And then, the reptile went completely mad. It kept saying over and over that it was happy, making roars that sounded like laughter, rolling around and slapping the floor with its tail. After its unsuccessful requests to stop the tickling, the reptile fell asleep, or entered a similar state with a smile on its snout. Really? A happily frolicking, hard-to-destroy reptile? Time to get back to reality. During an attempt by Class D employees to get the Tickle Monster out of the chamber, SCP-682 jumped up, generating a powerful wave of energy that came out of nowhere. While the affected employees writhed in a fit of manic laughter, the reptile went off to kill and to destroy the Foundation zone. Meanwhile, SCP-999 had begun to carry the still living employees away from the enraged reptile. Operatives eventually caught SCP-682 and placed it back in the chamber. The reptile rudely wished this puny vile SCP-999 a speedy death. But now, let's talk about why I named this sweet old Tickle Monster the son of the devil, and why he really doesn't belong to the safe object class. There's no current information that points to the circumstances surrounding SCP-999's discovery, which is, well, unsurprising, since the object is the Scarlet King's child. The King is an ancient creature born of darkness, also in containment at the Foundation. However, it exists in several dimensions simultaneously, and if it were to decide to completely move into our world, everything would come to an end. According to ancient texts, the Scarlet King had 7 brides. The goddess Sana, taken by force by the Scarlet King, gave birth to them after her death. The king made his daughters bring his terrible offspring into the world. 6 of the sisters gave birth to monsters for his army. But the 7th bride remained unbroken and brought heroes into the world, called to overthrow her evil father. Members of the cult known as the Children of the Scarlet King conducted a ritual, during which those same 7 brides possessed the bodies of young girls. The Foundation captured the girls and placed them in one of its zones, designating them as SCP-231. Access to work with the girls was granted by the O5 Council personally. One of the reports notes that presently, the Scarlet King is the most powerful evil entity known to mankind. All objects contained in the Foundation are either the King's descendants or were created by people who received power from him. In cult writings, it's said that if the 7th bride gives birth again, then the apocalypse will befall Earth. This can only be avoided with the help of the cruel 110 Montauk procedure, performed with the girl daily. The O5 Council ordered an investigation, but in order to avoid the end of the world, went ahead with the implementation of the savage procedure. We know that the 7th bride is a girl who looks about 6 years old, and that the 110 Montauk procedure includes sexual abuse of her. While the Foundation was conducting their investigation, the first 6 girls died, not wanting to mock the sole survivor any longer, but risking the very fabric of the world. SCP-231-7 was allowed to give birth. Their result? The Tickle Monster. This data is hidden from Foundation employees. Most of them assume that the 7th bride is still being held and abused in one of the zones. Moreover, their fear and disgust at the thought of the Montauk procedure helps to contain the Scarlet King. This is just like the case of SCP-2845. He believes that the wild ceremonies take away his power, but this is, in fact, not the case. The O5 Council has unofficially confirmed that the Tickle Monster is the only effective weapon against the most powerful evil creatures on Earth. This brings us back to the experiments with the hard-to-destroy reptile, and the classification of SCP-999. It is not, in fact, a safe object, but is classified as Thamil. In addition, it's believed that SCP-682 is a descendant of the 4th bride, Azib. She had the form of a huge beast, and the Scarlet King put the seal of wrath on her. Azib's children looked like her, and possessed impenetrable skins. Pretty similar to the hard-to-destroy reptile, right? If this is the case, then SCP-999 does indeed have the strength to counteract its brothers born of the Scarlet King's brides. The Foundation notes that the Tickle Monster is still a child at heart. I can believe this, given its behavior and its diet of sweets. But the main thing is that its strength will grow along with it. In the future, the object's ability to suppress malice will indeed be able to disable even the Scarlet King himself. What else can be said? If the most powerful weapon against evil looks like a playful pile of jelly, eating candy and tickling you until you pass out, then not all hope is lost. On this encouraging note, I invite you to share your thoughts about SCP-999 in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Yours truly, Detective Void.